you will see a lot of Haldirams, Balajis and Bikajis of this world who operate in that mass market space. They have nothing to do with quality, right? They just build an Indian taste bud of, bhujiyas and palm oil. They're just solving a taste purpose. They have not grown beyond that. We had offers from ITC, Patanjali's and of the world who said, why don't you make popcorns for us? And we resisted those offers, right? We said कि अगर हम आपके लिए बनाना शुरू करेंगे तो शायद हम अपने लिए कुछ कर ही नहीं पाएंगे. If we had done that, we could have probably made more money at short-term vision, but probably not in long-term. India में ना popcorn exist करता था, but कोई बात नहीं कर रहा था. People used to go to cinema, have it. People used to have one ready wala in their market and probably consume that popcorn. That's it. But nobody was talking about the product. So we thought, I think we need to create that curiosity. We need to tell about the product from scratch. And that's how this name became more relevant for us when we started thinking.
चिराग, हमें ना ऐसे फाउंडर्स बहुत पसंद हैं जो कि आते तो हैं बट साथ में बहुत कुछ ले आते हैं. So 4700 BC popcorns. And this is a new innovative Pop chips. And this is Chirag Gupta from 4700 BC, founder. Hello. And thank you for coming to the Second Act Podcast, Chirag.
Thank you for having me here.
Chirag, how are you feeling?
Good.
Are you excited? You're on a platform where you will probably touch millions of lives today.
I hope so. I hope this is interesting enough for them. So let's see.
It will be, of course. And Chirag, I was just wondering, ये इतनी interesting journey रही होगी from working in the US, leaving everything, coming and reinventing popcorns for India. Tell us about it.
So yeah, I mean, I keep saying this. I'm a hardcore techie who's selling popcorns now. Right?
Wow.
So I'm a B.Tech, 1 year in Infosys, then did my masters from in computer science, right? And I was crazy to get into a Google, Microsoft, and I think I interviewed everybody, right? Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, everyone.
Wow.
Got into Deloitte and Microsoft. Deloitte offered us a 10,000 joining bonus. Joining was in Miami, so that overpowered a Microsoft offer, and decided to just had fun joining Deloitte, and but could spend good 5 years with Deloitte, and I just decided to come back for family reasons. I'm the only son, mom, dad alone in India. So thought कि अभी आ सकते हैं, अभी visa भी है, try करते हैं, वापस आते हैं, maybe convince them to take them back to US.
Wow.
So on that thought, we just left Deloitte, came back, joined Deloitte India just to continue that journey. And meanwhile, I took a sabbatical break from Deloitte for 3 months and thought, let's see if I can do something of my own. And that's where this whole research started of what can we do, right? And because I was in Deloitte, I was thinking more from a service industry perspective कि कुछ consulting करते हैं, कुछ servicing industry में जाते हैं. But when I started talking to a lot of people, then India में लोग hardcore business सोचते हैं, उनको ये service consulting समझ नहीं आता. So a lot of friends suggested me कि यार ऐसा कुछ करते हैं. Somebody said कि food में बड़ा अच्छा interest है. One industry which never dies out, right? So we started researching कि food में क्या कर सकते हैं. And we were searching a lot of products which we have seen somewhere, but not in India. Luckily, at the same time, my wife one day asked, "Can I have the same popcorn which I used to have in Chicago?" Right? And we suddenly start searching for it. कि कहाँ मिलता है? And we realized there is nowhere even remotely close to what we had in US, right? And that's where the interest got into it. कि ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है, right? There was some very sexy thing we saw in US. And India was not even remotely close to it, right? And cinema were the people who were claiming to have the best popcorns, but उनके पास भी नहीं था दूर तक. So then we got some samples from US कि चलो try करते हैं, and then let's see how different they are from the Indian popcorns, and then realize there's a huge drastic difference. But here we are, right? From a B.Tech, MS, Deloitte guys, how can they figure out how to make popcorns, right? So that was a journey. I think next 6-8 months we just spent, decoding every YouTube videos, every every back of the pack label of what ingredients goes into making what product. If you still search internet, and you will find forums where you have my queries saying how do we use this machine, how do we make this popcorn. So I think we did a lot of research. We hired a very basic local chef to say let's experiment something, and धीरे धीरे we realized we're getting close to what we saw in US. फिर लेकिन एक दिन था कि मशीन ऑर्डर करनी पड़ेंगी, कॉन्स मंगवाने पड़ेंगे. So we didn't realize, but we just got into it. There was we already made investment into machines, inventory and everything. So we realized कि अब तो घुस गए हम इसमें, let's start doing it. And that's how I think the whole journey started for us.
So that's the popcorn journey for you, and we are lucky to have somebody like you doing this. So who resonates with Chirag's story of leaving the US in the big four and then coming to India and then this entrepreneurship journey? I think I've had so many people from IIT who were a part of my podcast. And पता नहीं IIT में कुछ है या IIM के लोगों में कुछ है, कि entrepreneur बनना है. तो so this is of course another one who's coming to tell कि okay भी the big four छोड़ के अब कुछ और करते हैं. So interesting start, definitely, but at the same time, because entrepreneurship is very different than what you were doing.
Correct.
So what you're saying is you just got into it.
Yeah, I think I've been talking to a lot of people, and I think whoever is doing well, right, had a good intent of doing something, right, and had a passion of doing something, right, and I think the passion could be making money also, right? What I've realized, the people who says कि यार पैसा कमाना है, खूब सारा पैसा कमाना है, and they make a good business out of it. I think my passion in this case was कि कुछ करना है, right? There should not be a regret after 40 or 50 that कुछ किया नहीं, right? That was my only, I think, intent at that time.
Nice.
कि एक try तो मारना है, ये नहीं हो सकता कि बोलें कि try नहीं किया life में.
Nice.
So I think that was my kick to get into something like this. I've seen people who say कि हमें पैसा कमाना है, and they also do well. There are people who say I'm hardcore techie and कुछ technology wise करना है, they do well. I think somebody needs a kick somewhere. I think my kick just came from कि you can't regret after 10 years कि कुछ किया नहीं. So I think that's where I started from. And honestly, I had zero knowledge of how the business works, how things works. It's just कि बस कुछ करना है. I think I've been learning on the job as we do. A lot of mistakes along the line, but that's how I think somebody start, right, somewhere.
Interesting. So why don't we talk to him about the learnings, right? So, okay, you said lots of learnings. Of course, you said you had no idea.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I'm doing a course in IIM these days on entrepreneurship, women entrepreneurship. And everybody is saying, what is the big why? What is the big purpose you're solving? What is the big problem you're solving? So we have to keep answering that question.
Right.
So did you have stuff like this in your brain to say, what is it that you're solving? What are you bringing? Or just you said, चलो popcorn नहीं है, popcorn मंगाओ, ये अच्छी market लग रही है, करते हैं.
So I think everybody doesn't think so much before starting. I think especially in the first venture, right? सबको होता है कि बस कुछ करना है या कुछ एक passion होता है where the kick starts from. And I think along the journey you realize what you are actually doing it, right? So nobody knows कि nobody would know कि मुझे इसको 100 करोड़ का brand बनाना है या 1000 करोड़ का बनाना है on day one.
Right.
Maybe they have a ambition of doing this, but they don't know how to do it, right? So I think it's along the journey you realize what are you doing, what purpose you're solving, right? So when we started, we were just crazy about कि एक अच्छा product है जो हमने बाहर देखा और इंडिया में नहीं देखा. But now I think as we are growing now, the realization is कि there is genuine need for a brand which delivers what they commit in the snacking space, right? And there's a gap in that market, right?
Yeah.
You might see a Pringle doing this in international market. You might see a Tong Garden doing this in international market, where there's a requirement for a good brand, right? A good brand who does good product, innovative product, has a mission of doing it. Not saying innovation is one part of it, but it creates a brand in the consumer mind कि ये brand कुछ अच्छा deliver करता है, right? So I think that's where we're lacking in India. There is you will see a lot of Haldirams, Balajis and Bikajis of this world who operate in that mass market space.
Absolutely.
Right, but they have nothing to do with quality, right? They just build an Indian taste bud of bhujiyas and palm
तुम
oil.
पकड़े जाओगे अब.
No, but seriously, I mean, they're just solving a taste purpose. They have not grown beyond that, which is good for us, right? That's where we come in and say, ki, okay, let them do what they do best. Let us do what we can do best. And I think there's market for both in Indian market, right? Somebody just have to build that market in India. So I think that's how we pivoted from saying कि एक popcorn जैसा product निकालना है to saying we have to build a brand which solve this purpose. So this probably have taken 10 years to realize, right? So I think that's something we didn't realize on day one. So I think you pivot during the journey, I think.
Let me come to the learnings. So you spoke about the learnings, pehle, right? That there were many learnings which came along the way. So do you want to say, okay, what are your top 3 learnings in this journey?
So I think biggest learning is keep doing what you're doing, right? I think you might get distracted along the way, but your goal has to be very clear, right? So for us, one of the biggest learning is, which we now realize, right? We didn't realize it, is, I think the best thing we have done so far is build a good brand, right? I won't say we make the best popcorns or the best chips in the market. I think we build a good brand in consumer mind, right? So learning is keep working towards what you're doing, right? And I think this was not intentional from day one. I think it got built during the journey, right? And we realized this is what we're doing good. Right. So I think this was learning that you might get distracted. So we had offers from ITC, Patanjali's and of the world who said, why don't you make popcorns for us, right? And we resisted those offers, right? We said कि अगर हम आपके लिए बनाना शुरू करेंगे तो शायद हम अपने लिए कुछ कर ही नहीं पाएंगे. Like we get distracted by our thing. So today, if we had said yes, I don't think 47 BC would be what it is today. If we had done that, we could have probably made more money at short-term vision, but probably not in long-term. So I think a lot of distractions, but something has to be very clear in your mind that what are you going for. And I think that is very clear in our mind that the only reason 47 BC will survive is because of the brand, right? Not because their popcorns are good, their chips are good, their team is good, nothing else. I think the branding is what sustains. So that's a biggest learning which said distraction will come, but keep focusing on one thing. I think other learnings is, which is, you have to understand your consumer very well. Initially, हमें लगता था कि इंडिया की market is, में 100 रुपए का popcorn बिकेगा, right? Now we realize कि वो percentage सिर्फ 1% लोग हैं, आधा % लोग हैं. We still are very massy country. People can eat 100 rupees popcorn day one, but not like 15 days a month.
Right.
So you need to understand your consumer very well. So we started from the high-end malls, only targeting top-end consumers, but that doesn't give you revenue. If you need to really build business, you have to understand the audience. So our thought process was maybe coming from a US market, but had to graduate towards the Indian market. So these are learnings along the way. I think understanding your consumer is very important. Making consumer understand about your brand is also very important.
Sure.
I think which is one thing which a lot of brands miss. How do you want your brand to be perceived by a consumer, right? Wow. So I think these are the learnings. We're still learning every day. I think there's a lot of learning every day, but I think we made a lot of mistakes. But I think I keep saying we learn from our mistakes and then grow. I think. But गलतियाँ करनी ज़रूरी हैं शायद इसलिए. But good, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Chirag. And I want to sum it up, of course, what my understanding, of course, from your learning is, and I so resonate with it. One, that don't leave the path that you're on, because I think you need to follow your path. Don't drop off without, having a really genuine effort made. And also what I understand is that there will be distractions along the way. You will probably be tempted to fall off many, many times or to take another path, but stay on the path that you've decided to. Second, what I really take away is that, you need to understand your consumer and you need to cater to that consumer, not in the head. Sometimes we make an imaginary thing to say, ye bahut acha chalega. Okay. I think that is the testimony comes from when the end consumer actually gives you that validation. Correct. To say, yes, I like it, what you're doing for me, and this is value for me. Correct. Yeah. And of course, the third thing is that how do you get perceived? Correct. And I think that is something that I really believe in that the perception of who you are, the brand that you create, is extremely important. And people, like you said, or brands feel कि नहीं हम बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, we will be known for it.
Correct.
But maybe not, because you haven't really worked on creating that atmosphere or that environment or that perception that
Correct.
goes behind.
I think
right?
two brands in India which I personally have huge respect is, I think, DMart and Indigo, right?
Yeah, look at Indigo, what they did. I mean,
right?
amazing
I mean,
stuff.
what a success story in last 15 years,
So
right?
true.
From zero to a 61% market share, right? Beating the likes of Air India and everybody on the way. But what they did best is, one, I think, understanding the consumer needs, right? Very well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
डीमार्ट को समझ में आ गया कि ऑफर दो माल बिकता है, जस्ट फोकस ऑन दैट, राइट? मास, एंड वी आर वेरी वेरी ऑफर ड्रिवन कंज्यूमर्स, राइट? जहाँ पे भी ऑफर देखेगा हम चले जाएंगे. सो दे क्रैक दैट मॉडल, राइट? एंड इंडिगो अंडरस्टूड कि सिंपल पर्पस सॉल्व करना है, सस्ते में एक पॉइंट से दूसरे पॉइंट तक पहुँचाना है. And I think now consumer has accepted that as a model, right? It's not like कि luxury नहीं available,
so true,
right? But consumers had realized कि this is what they commit and this is what they deliver. It's not like कि seat अच्छी नहीं है तो पता है नहीं है, right? So they're very clear in their goal. So I think, and I think the third best thing, like second best thing about them is both of them has done operational efficiencies very well, right? And that is, I think that is the next big point for us also, to be operationally efficient, right? India जैसी country में volume बहुत है, scope बहुत है, but जहाँ पे efficiencies नहीं है वो build नहीं हो सकता. So I think these are the two best examples I can find in this market.
Very nice.
I think Indigo and DMart.
So thank you. I think that made really sense. But you know, Chirag, every kid today wants to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Both my children want to be an entrepreneur. They're the young generation. Nobody wants to work for anybody. So what is your advice, firstly? And of course, where do you see this going? If everybody turns out to be an entrepreneur, काम कौन करेगा किसी के लिए सारे?
So I think first advice would be, while it's definitely a good learning curve to be an entrepreneur, I think there has to be some pre-learning before you become an entrepreneur, right? I think I now understand what Deloitte did to me, right? Probably if I have been in Microsoft, I would have been doing something different, but I could not do what I'm doing today, right? But Deloitte taught me that way of working,
Processes,
that ethics, compliances, right? The basic things which a large MNC can serve, and the way to talk, the way to network, which Microsoft would have never taught me, right? So I think that learning is important to build a nice organization, to build your own company, right? Today, I think when we hire a lot of new kids, I think this is one thing which I keep telling them is that at some point in your career, you need to work in a large organization because you understand how organizations work, right?
Absolutely.
So, there is while they always should work in a startup, but startup doesn't have a lot of culture defined from day one, which large companies have. So I think a bit of pre-learning is important. Unless somebody figure out from day one what they want to do that's a different story, but bit of pre-learning is important. And I think, as I said in the beginning, the intent has to be very clear, right? कि क्यों कर रहे हो, right? What's the purpose of you doing an entrepreneurship? Is it because सब कर रहे हैं इसलिए मुझे करना है, या is it because you're really passionate about something, right?
नहीं इसलिए करना है क्योंकि किसी और के लिए काम नहीं करना ना.
So वो भी बुरा नहीं है idea. I would say I think I also had that same feeling when I was working with Deloitte कि यार why I'm working 16 hours for somebody else when I can probably do something more for me myself. So that's also not a bad intent, but that has to be very clear in your mind, right? You cannot come back and say कि यार मैंने startup किया but I thought that is better, right? That should not happen along the way. So you need to be very clear कि हाँ. And for doing that, you need to work in a corporate also, right? To realize कि ये नहीं करना मुझे. So I think that one thing has to be very clear कि पैसा बनाना है, that's the goal. 10 साल काम करना है, फिर छोड़ देना है, रेस्ट करना, एंजॉय करना है लाइफ, that's the goal. और या एक legacy create करनी है, that's the goal. Something has to be very clear in your mind. Lot of kids wants easy money. That's not the route, right? Maybe if you do well in 10-15 years, maybe, but if you think in short term you can do this, probably no. You probably have to put a lot more effort, especially in Indian market, because Indian is a large consumer market where you have to do a lot of things correct, right, to become successful.
Right.
So I think the intent has to be very clear, and I think a bit of learning before you start will definitely help, if not negative, but at least some positives from it.
Great. So I know that 4700 BC का जो नाम है उसके पीछे बहुत स्टोरी है और आप वो स्टोरी शायद बहुत बारी बता चुके हो.
Okay.
But people who have not heard it, in short and crisp, tell us why 4700 BC.
So when we started searching for a brand, popcorn was a very, very, very popular product in US, right? And every common name we could think of was taken by somebody, right? And we obviously wanted something unique, right, as in any branding. And there was one brand in US which had a numeric number to it, right? And I can always say that brand name also. It's called 479 degree popcorn, right? And the theory of 479 degree was, it's a perfect temperature of popping the popcorn, right? So we really got crazy about it, right? What branding, what name, and everything. And so we were so much overpowered by that name, and we kept thinking, what should we do? And that's where we thought we also want a number which is very relevant to popcorn, right? And then when we started searching, so we found somewhere on Wikipedia some article that the oldest evidence of people knowing how to make popcorns dated as back as 4700 BC. So the whole idea was to tell this is one of the oldest snacks people have been consuming, right? Because see, any other product which you eat, like whether it's chips or nachos or bhujiyas, all are artificially processed. Popcorn is one thing which can be naturally popped, right? So probably somewhere in South America, somebody was growing corn and it got near to a fire or something and it naturally got popped, right? So I think that was the intent behind this name, and we thought there's a definite, and we also realized one thing, like India में popcorn exist करता था, but कोई बात नहीं कर रहा था. Right? People used to go to cinema, have it. People used to have one ready wala in their market and probably consume that popcorn, that's it. But nobody was talking about the product, right? कि जैसे chips की बात करते हैं, ये chips आया, वो chips आया, ये different हुआ. Nobody was talking about popcorn. So we thought, I think we need to create that curiosity. We need to tell about the product from scratch. And that's how this name became more relevant for us when we started thinking, right? So that's how it got started.
But honestly, for me, the kind of popcorn flavors that are there, I took time to really start liking it. Like from caramel to honey to salt and pepper to something else.
Right.
There are so many variations that you have.
Right.
Like who eats meetha popcorn? Like who eats like something which has a sweet flavor? It was a mindset change. How did you work on that?
So obviously, first was because it was started from a West culture, right? Western countries, right? So sweet is always the key there. So we also thought the same thing. Honestly, our first impression was कि मीठे popcorn कौन खाएगा, especially Indian जैसी market में. But trust me, मीठा ज़्यादा बिकता है, right?
Really?
And people are ready to pay more for meetha popcorns than a namkeen popcorn, because namkeen popcorn लोगों को लगता है it's like a cheaper product. But trust me, people know 47 BC, I think probably for the caramel and chocolate popcorns. They see a value in that product. They actually, but I think उसमें लोगों को एक innovation भी दिखता है जो बाकी चीज़ popcorns में नहीं दिखता. But I think if you see our numbers in popcorn, it's almost 50-50 now, savory versus sweet. And we are the only company who started this whole culture of, chocolate popcorns into gifting, which is really doing well for us, right? I think, I'm not exaggerating, but at least 2 out of 10 hampers, you might see a popcorn product in every hamper. So I think that is happening because people have accepted that as a product, and there was strong liking for that thing. And if you see from a consumer perspective also, and I think a single bite of sweet popcorn is better than a burfi for them after an evening snack, right? So I think a lot of people use our product as a small bite of sweet dose, which now we realize it's all that purpose.
Very nice, because in Indian households, I mean, we must eat something sweet after every meal.
Dinner,
and couple of popcorn bites will help.
It's much better than a burfi and a rasgulla and all that stuff. Yeah.
So cool. So what's happening next in your product category? Because I know that these chips which you have introduced, healthy ones, are something that I'm savoring and really very interesting.
So again, the idea, what we realized was ki, during the journey that, while we started with the popcorn and, kind of promoted popcorn for 7-8 years in this country, 7 years to be precise, we realized we built a good brand in the journey, but the category of building a ready-to-eat popcorn will take time, right? Because people are still in India, still more used to making popcorn at home, because that's what Ecto has been selling for 25 years.
Yeah.
So the whole ready-to-eat culture and fitting popcorn into a snacking space, will take time, right? Will take a lot of efforts in just 1 or 2 years. So, but what we've done well during the journey is kind of build a good brand, good consumer perception about the brand. So we thought, why don't we leverage this more? And I think knowingly or unknowingly, I think the consumer perception was this is an innovative brand who's done something different, something unique into India market, right? So that perception was very nice, right? So we thought that's the consumer feedback we took, innovation hai, kuch hai. So I think we thought we had to continue that journey. So we should be known as a brand who's bringing new stuff into this country, who's building, who's not doing a potato chips, what Lay's has been done or somebody else has done, something unique in their product line. And I think now our journey is to keep finding those products and keep introducing them, right? So, and introduce in the right way also, right? Tell consumer what the product is, do that communication very well, which maybe not all the companies able to do well. So that's why we started Pop Chips, which is again a healthier version of chips, new technology. Makhanas everybody knows in this country, but we thought the biggest problem with the makhana as a product to become big is the name itself, because it's a very Indianish name, very locally known. People in North India may know about it, but not in South India or East India. So I think we thought the problem is name, right? So we fixed it and call it Protein Pops, and that's how we're trying to push it.
Nice.
Then we're trying to even bring Praisals into India. Everybody does it internationally, but nobody does it in India. So there's still a lot of innovation product line missing in Indian market, because as I said, we're still a bhujia, namkeen kind of a country. But people are looking forward to new snacks, and I think that's the space we want to build it bigger, right? So you might see a lot of new products introduced under 47BC, which are all innovative, unique, not seen in India before, something differentiated about them.
Beautiful. So that was about work. Now I want to ask you something about you,
Okay.
Chirag. Every founder goes through a lot of crisis management, internally, externally.
Yeah.
It's not only about handling the teams and handling your organization, it's about handling you.
Yeah.
And I think in this very self-aware world, where we are also focusing a lot on what we go through, what are you going through as a founder?
So I think initial few years was just running, right? Getting worried about small things every day, right? And killing yourself, right? Probably, even getting 1,000 rupees order delivered, we were getting involved, we were taking care of it, probably delivering it ourselves also, right? Because that's how I think startups are born, right? But so I think initial 5-6 years, really, I think I'm particularly myself killed in doing all that stuff, getting worried about stuff I should not have. But I think during COVID, when COVID started, I think that really gave that break to think beyond what we were doing, right? So I think in a way, COVID was really helpful for me and the business, because we could really have time for ourselves, right? Because kuch ho hi nahi raha tha, right? 3 mahine to like zero business, right? You can't even think of doing something at that time, right? So the only thing you can do was think about yourself, think what is happening, what you've really done in the last 5 years. I think biggest thought came कि तुम कितने भी मेहनत कर लो, something like COVID can come and just screw everything up, right? So I think that was I think one of the good points personally also and professionally also for me. And I think that's when I started realizing, let's start focusing on yourself. So last 2 years, I've been able to give time to myself, and it's more on the health side. So, did a lot of cycling, lot of hiking, lot of running, right? So I think And it all just happened in last 2 years, right? Like before COVID, I never used to run like 500 meters. I think now in last 1 year, I've run 7, 8 half marathons at least, right? Then
Wow.
I did Everest Base Camp during this period. I did cycling, 100-kilometer cycling a day, to cycling in mountains.
Here in Gurgaon, 100
Yeah.
kilometers a day.
Yeah. So I think, and I realized one thing, that you can give time for yourself and still not get your business affected, right, by it. So it's just how you plan your day, how you take time for yourself, and it doesn't screw up anything else, right? So before you used to think, yeah, time ही कहाँ मिलेगा, सुबह रात को late कर रहे हो सुबह, but if you start taking out time, it doesn't affect anything. Actually, it helps more than anything. So if I go to office after working out in the morning, I think I'm a better output in office than if I don't do anything and then go, right? So I think this all happened in last 2-3 years post COVID. So
Very
that's the best thing could have happened, I think, personally for me.
Okay, tell me something that, these days when you look at the new startups, it's all about how much funding they got. And in 3 months, they become multimillionaires somehow. And
Right.
then, of course, then they get more seed fund, and then they get more funding and whatever. And the entrepreneurs like me, small time, who are service oriented and who really work from the heart, and they don't have a formal product to whatever, suddenly somebody like me feels, oh my God, am I in the race at all? I mean, am I there somewhere? Not even in the race. I mean, what I meant was, where do people like us, and not even service, I mean, even product wise, if you don't get funding, you feel, oh, are you missing out? Because this is such a funding world.
So I think it's not really a funding world. I think it's more what media is covering these days, right? I think media makes things larger than life, right? And I think everybody wants to hear what is happening in the startup world. So, I mean, I can tell you 10 companies who are doing well but not covered by media, right? So there are people who are doing good stuff, quietly building it, doing what they were like doing it, and still not in the news, right? But there are people who get covered more than others because that's what people want to see these days. So I think it's not really, I think what you are doing makes you happy, probably makes you money in some time, but it's what you wanted to do, right? And it's not, every business cannot be seen like a $1 billion business, right? Every business cannot be a 1,000 crore business. And I think it's just what makes you happy doing what you're doing, right? I probably just enjoy the journey of what I'm doing, and if I do keep doing the same stuff, I get bored of it, right? So unless I challenge myself to do something bigger for the business, it doesn't excite me, right? So, but do I want to do this for 25 years? Probably not. I probably want to do it for the next 5 years and then just enjoy my life, right? So everybody has a different goal, personally, professionally, but I think that nobody should get overpowered by this.
Very
And
nice.
I think even the people who get funding, I know so many friends of mine, I think it's more pressure than anything else, right? So if you take external money, right, it doesn't come for free, it comes with a lot of stress. We have been lucky that, PVR give us a limited stress, but not crazy stress. But I've seen founders who get too much stress just because investors want them to, double, triple, like an year, which is realistically not possible, right? I was telling somebody, if you are a 50 crore revenue business and your investor wants to make it 100 in 1 year, that means you're literally adding another 50 crores in 1 year, right? That realistically is very difficult, right? I mean, imagine you said you build 50 crores in 10 years and now you want somebody to do another 50 crores in 1 year, right? It's unrealistic, right? You bound to do wrong things, right? So I think if you see any businesses which is built in this country are not built overnight, right? Any business, right? Haldiram is not Haldiram overnight, right? They had 1 shop, 2 shops, 10 shops. That's how they grew it, right?
It's a legacy.
It's a legacy, right? So, I mean, Parle Ji, right? Parle Ji is Parle Ji because it's been selling for 40, 50 years, right?
So true.
So, it's very few. I mean, you can't run after something because one is successful out of 100. You have to probably see the other 50 scenarios, how they built up, right? And I think we keep running after that one scenario. But I think just keep doing what you want to do.
Super.
Yeah.
So the three things that I have made out after speaking to the founder of 4700 BC, Chirag Gupta, on funding is: one, don't run the race on funding, because very few people who have the funding, media is only running after them. Second, funding is not for everybody. If you're happy in what you're doing in your small way, take those small steps and grow business very purpose-led and authentically, with a lot of purpose behind it and a lot of happiness and joy behind it. And I think that serves a lot of people like me. Third is that funding is not something which is rosy. It comes with a lot of horrible things like excessive pressure to perform, a lot of stress, and things that you probably have not even experienced or thought of, the health related issues which come, the performance related issues which come. And I think your constant endeavor to multiply that pretty quickly. So I think there is a downside of the whole thing of the glamorized funding business that is going on. So go slow, everybody. It's not everybody's piece of cake.
Yeah.
Right? Great. So Chirag, this is a Second Act podcast, and of course the Second Act podcast is all about your second act.
Yeah.
And I leave it to the guest who's coming here to define second act in their own way. And
Yeah.
I have 130 plus guests coming and 130 different second acts coming out.
Sure.
So if I ask this question, what is Chirag's second act?
So I think I can break it down into two, right? So one was obviously the whole BTech, MS, hardcore techie to selling snacks. I think that whole pivoting was a second act for me. While I wanted to peacefully build this, right? I think I want to personally also get to the next level of doing something for myself and not think money or profession in between. So I think that's where all this hiking, cycling, like doing more challenging stuff. I think so. I did running.
Nice.
Not because I wanted to run. I was given a challenge to run in Ladakh in like 3 months. So I took that as a challenge and ran after it. Right. So we wanted to do Everest Base Camp because it always sounds very fancy stuff. We did a track for 2 days, 3 days trek, and we directly went for Everest Base Camp. Right. So that was like a switch.
Without prep?
I mean, just doing home exercise, but no a tracking exercise, right? So that was a challenging. So I think I want to pursue this side by side and be happy of doing something in my life personally. So I think that's where I think the thing is happening. And I think personally, at some point, I want to write a book or something, right? Which I wanted to cover what I've done. But for that, I need to keep doing what I'm doing in parallel, so that there is a story to tell. Absolutely. But that's something in the lines, in the works.
Super. So Chirag, we have a section which is called Sorry, but I'm Not Sorry.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you 5 things that you're sorry about, but not really sorry about. What are those 5 things then?
So I think
One
would be, wanted to be always a hardcore techie, right? But I think building a brand is much bigger thing than just coding.
2.
I think taking out time for myself in the morning and doing what I wanted to do and not really care about what is happening at home. I think it could be the second. 3 would be a little guilty one, but I think I want my workspace to be like me, like to be what I want it to be.
Okay.
So sometimes my room is very different from how my colleagues' rooms are or my employee rooms are. So I think a little bit guilty that I just make my room very fancy, right? But sorry, but not sorry. Yeah.
Great.
And 4, I think like because we work 5 or 6 days a week, I think one day of a week I just sleep the whole day, right? It's
I'm not sorry about that at all.
Yeah, I think I need one day where nobody says, why are you sleeping so much? 5th point could be, because I said I'm a hardcore techie, right? So any new gadget which comes into the market, I need to have it. Whether my wife like it or not, why are you buying so much expensive stuff? Whether I just want to get my hands on everything which is new in the market.
Wow.
So that's again, I think,
Super.
solving it. So whether it's expensive or not, I don't care at that point. But yeah.
This is really cool, and thank you for sharing so authentically. And I think this podcast is all about being real, just being honest, so that people see real people here, and they don't feel, oh my God, Chirag is somebody I don't relate to. So thanks, Chirag. This was so wonderful.
Thank you.
We have a rapid fire question round, and for that I have to use my phone. I'm so sorry. The gadget that I have put all the rapid fires, be as quick as possible on it, and the time starts now. Sweet or savory popcorn?
Savory.
Cinema or OTT?
OTT.
Being an early bird or night owl?
Early.
Better tool for promotion, LinkedIn or Instagram?
LinkedIn.
Your favorite management style, hands-on or delegation?
Little bit hands-on. I think more hands-on.
What's the USP of a great entrepreneur? Ability to raise funds or ability to maintain relations?
I think both, but I think relationship is key.
Great. Bigger competition, Act 2 or the Crunch Box?
I think no one. And if we do what we wanted to do, there's no competition.
Great. And I think that's what it is. So thank you so much, Chirag.
Thank you.
Great one for the popcorn.
Thank you.
And discover your second act.
Thank you.
So this is yet another incredible episode of Discover Your Second Act. I'm hoping that as me, you are feeling very, very excited, enthusiastic, and learned about all the nuggets that came out. So follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and of course, until next time, keep discovering your second.